Welcome to the deep dive. So, let's picture this. Paramahansa Yogananda arriving in America. It's this huge moment, right? He's got this incredible mission sharing ancient spiritual wisdom.
Absolutely. A mission that really sparks something, a curiosity that, still resonates with so many people today.
For sure.
Mm.
But beneath that sort of public journey, there were these personal currents, things we all face, like loss.
Exactly. The kind of loss that inevitably shapes us.
And we all know what that's like, trying to navigate that pain, that grief, while still, holding on to whatever purpose we feel we have. It's just, well, it's part of being human, isn't it?
It really is. And in this deep dive, we're going to zoom in on some of those personal losses Yogananda faced, specifically the passing of his mother.
Right.
And we want to explore how he navigated those really raw human emotions, but through his spiritual lens. For you listening, maybe it's a chance to think about how someone who had such a massive impact also dealt with profound personal sorrow.
Yeah, exactly. The big questions we're really trying to dig into today are things like, what does it actually mean to hold both deep pain and a really strong sense of purpose?
Yeah.
Like in the same heart at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe can loss, as hard as it is, can it actually become a path, a way towards something deeper, like more presence or more compassion, maybe even real inner strength?
Those are powerful questions. Really
Right.
powerful. And to explore them, specifically in Yogananda's life, we'll be looking closely at his own words, mainly in his Autobiography of Yogi.
Okay.
We're treating that as our primary source, really, to try and understand his personal experiences and the perspective he brought to life, including its sorrows.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. Thinking about his early life.
Mm-hmm.
Before he was Yogananda, he was Mukunda Ghosh. And it's so clear from his writing just how deeply his mother influenced him.
Oh, absolutely. And what's fascinating there, something maybe listeners can reflect on too, is just the power of that early nurturing. He calls his mother a queen of hearts, right? Emphasizing that her main way of guiding him, of teaching him, was through love. Just imagine the impact of that kind of emotional foundation in those really formative years.
And it's interesting, too, isn't it, how he observed a change in his father, Bhagavati Charan Ghosh, after his mother died.
Mm-hmm.
He noticed his father starting to show more of his, inner tenderness. He even saw glimpses in his father's gaze that reminded him of his mother.
That really speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the depth of their connection, their bond, and her kind of enduring presence even after she was gone. It makes you think how loss can sometimes reveal hidden facets of people.
Yeah, that's true. And their mother, she was also the one who really introduced them to spirituality early on.
Right? Using stories.
Exactly. Stories from the Mahabharata and Ramayana, these epic Indian tales, but not just for entertainment, right? It was about teaching, even guiding their behavior. So Mukunda, even as a little kid, was immersed in these spiritual narratives.
And you can imagine how that early, consistent exposure to scripture just laid this fundamental groundwork for his later spiritual path. Mm-hmm. These stories are so rich with philosophy, ethics, subtly shaping how he saw life's challenges, the potential for growth. It undoubtedly informed where he was headed.
There's also that really touching story he tells about his mother's kindness. Remember the one about the 10 rupees?
Oh, yes, for the woman in need.
Right. She insisted on giving 10 rupees, but his father, he'd known poverty himself. His parents and grandparents died suddenly, left him with very little. So he was more practical. Suggested 1 rupee was enough.
It's such a telling little moment, that contrast, Her empathy-driven generosity versus his father's caution, which was rooted in his own past hardship.
Yeah.
It highlights how our own experiences really shape how we interact with the world, with suffering. It's a dynamic you see in lots of families, and you can bet those early observations fed into Yogananda's understanding of human nature.
Okay, but now, here's where things take a really significant turn. The premonition. Yogananda talks about this incredibly powerful feeling he had as a young boy. A vivid dream, or he called it a hallucination, where he saw his mother gravely ill.
That's quite something, isn't it? The idea of a premonition like that. The intensity he describes is palpable, his desperate plea to his father, "We must leave now."
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about that deep, maybe intuitive connection he felt with her. Have you, or maybe listeners, ever had that kind of strong, inexplicable feeling about someone?
And his father's reaction, initially quite dismissive.
Right. "Never mind that hallucination of yours," he apparently said. He assured Mukunda she was fine. He only reluctantly agreed to leave the next day.
Only after getting actual news confirming she was ill.
Exactly. That melancholy morning came with explicit words, as he put it, the father's initial skepticism. Maybe it was denial. a way to protect himself. It's a very human reaction.
Could be.
But the fact that confirmation did come really underscores the power of Mukunda's feeling and just how agonizing that journey home must have been for him.
Oh, absolutely. Filled with anxiety. And then arriving to face the devastating reality. His mother had passed. He talks about experiencing this incredibly deep grief. Even mentioning a period where he couldn't really accept comfort from other women. His connection to his mother's memory was just that profound.
That intensity of sorrow really highlights the depth of their bond. And for listeners, perhaps that resonates, you know, that feeling of an irreplaceable connection when you lose someone close, especially a parent. Grief can feel so isolating.
Then, fast forward about 14 months after she passed, something really significant happens. He learns about a final message his mother left specifically for him.
Ah, yes, the message from his older brother, Ananta.
Right. Ananta was there when she died and had actually written down her last words.
And the delay is fascinating, isn't it? His mother had asked Ananta to wait a year before giving it to Mukunda. But Ananta waited even longer until just before he was leaving for Calcutta for his own wedding. It suggests the message held something really personal, maybe even guidance for Mukunda's future.
Definitely feels that way. The way Ananta presented it, Mukunda, I have been reluctant to give you strange tidings. You can just feel the emotional weight of that moment. Now, the autobiography, our source here, it doesn't actually tell us what the message said.
No, it doesn't.
But it seems undeniable that this personal communication, whatever it was, must have been hugely important for Yogananda in, processing his grief.
Absolutely. And maybe the lack of specific detail allows us and listeners to think more broadly about the impact such a final message can have. Solace, perhaps. Guidance. A sense of closure tailored to his spiritual leanings.
Like a final act of love, maybe.
Exactly. A passing of wisdom from mother to son. Something quite powerful to contemplate regarding family bonds, even after death.
So, okay, we don't know the exact words, but we can start to piece together how Yogananda might have navigated this immense grief through that spiritual lens we talked about, by looking at other things he mentions in the autobiography.
Right, for instance, his deep connection to his guru, Lahiri Mahasaya, that becomes increasingly central around this time.
Even before he met him physically, right? Just seeing his picture.
Exactly. Seeing the picture had a surpassing influence, he says. The thought of the master just grew and grew within him. He'd feel his presence in meditation. So that early devotion, you can see it suggests this natural pull towards spiritual guidance, towards finding comfort in something higher, especially during really tough times.
He also talks about his strong belief from early on in a divine mother figure, specifically the goddess Kali. There was a small shrine in their home.
Yes, and seeking comfort in that maternal aspect of the divine. It seems like a very understandable, maybe even natural human response when you've lost your own mother.
Like finding a continuation of that nurturing energy.
Perhaps. It likely provided a sense of ongoing protection, a spiritual counterpart to the earthly mother he'd lost. It offers a framework maybe for him and for us to understand personal loss within a bigger, more cosmic picture.
And that seems pretty clear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That the challenges he faced early on, definitely including his mother's death, really acted as a kind of fuel. It propelled him further on his spiritual quest, ultimately leading him to actively seek out a guru, seek deeper realization.
Precisely. Loss often does that, doesn't it? It can be a catalyst. It makes us search for deeper meaning, for purpose. That pain of separation can really intensify our longing for connection with something beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
It can lead people down spiritual paths they might not have otherwise even considered. Maybe listeners have found something similar in their own lives.
And then thinking about later in his life, Yogananda really emphasizes Kriya Yoga. He calls it a most effective device of salvation through self-effort and divine grace.
Right.
Which suggests that his reliance on specific spiritual practices, like meditation, the Kriya techniques themselves, these became really integral for him, for finding inner strengths, finding peace, even amidst suffering.
That emphasis on Kriya Yoga really points to a proactive approach, doesn't it? It wasn't just about passively accepting grief. It was about actively engaging in practices he believed could bring about inner transformation, a deeper connection, which kind of raises the question for all of us, really. What are the practices or beliefs we turn to when things get tough?
Good question. So, okay, bringing this together,
Yeah.
what does it all tell us? How did Yogananda manage it? Holding this really deep personal pain alongside that incredibly strong sense of purpose. his mission in the West.
I think what's really insightful here, and maybe a key takeaway for listeners, is the idea that these two things, pain and purpose, they aren't necessarily mutually exclusive.
Right.
They can coexist. And maybe they can even fuel each other in a way. His own experiences with sorrow likely deepened his compassion, his understanding of others' suffering.
Like having navigated his own grief, he felt an even stronger pull to help alleviate the pain he saw elsewhere.
Possibly, yeah. It's like the wound itself becomes a source of wisdom, of empathy. The loss didn't seem to diminish his purpose. Maybe it infused it with greater urgency, a more profound connection to just the shared human condition.
That makes sense.
And acknowledging that pain, processing it, especially through a spiritual framework that's seeking meaning, that can foster incredible inner resilience. It teaches us about our own capacity to endure, and it can strengthen our resolve in whatever we're pursuing.
Even when facing huge adversity.
Exactly.
And finally, let's just touch on this idea of loss as a path. How might his mother's passing specifically have contributed to Yogananda developing that deeper presence, that inner strength he was known for?
Well, loss has this way of stripping away the non-essential, doesn't it? It forces us to confront our own mortality, the sheer preciousness of life. And that confrontation, yeah, it's painful, but it can lead to a much greater appreciation for the present moment and a deeper connection to our own inner resources. Maybe listeners have felt that kind of shift in perspective themselves after a loss.
It's almost like the pain forces a shift inwards, away from the purely external, towards what really matters deep down.
Could be. It can certainly clarify our values, highlight the impermanence of, the material world, and maybe even accelerate a spiritual journey for some.
So loss is a potential catalyst.
Exactly. While it's undeniably painful, loss can be a powerful catalyst for profound personal growth. If we navigate grief with intention, seeking meaning within whatever our beliefs are, we might just emerge with a greater sense of presence, more compassion, and a really resilient inner strength.
So wrapping up this deep dive then, Yogananda's experience of loss, particularly his mother's death, was clearly, well, pivotal in his life, a major event.
Undeniably.
And while the autobiography doesn't give us, say, a step-by-step guide to his grieving process, his deep spiritual inclinations, that connection with his guru, and his eventual huge mission, it all strongly suggests a path where he navigated that sorrow through faith, through purpose. It seems like loss, for him, wasn't just an obstacle he had to get over to do his spiritual work, but maybe it was actually part of the path itself, leading to deeper understanding, maybe deeper resilience.
That's a powerful way to look at it. And maybe that leads us to a final thought, something for you, our listener, to mull over.
Okay.
How might your own experiences of loss, when you look back at them, maybe through the lens of your own personal beliefs, your values, how might they be actively shaping your understanding of life right now and how you pursue your own sense of purpose?
Yeah.
Just consider the potential within those difficult moments, those times of pain. The potential not just for sorrow, but maybe also to cultivate a deeper wellspring of compassion and a more enduring inner strength as you navigate your own unique journey.